Project Hail Mary is a good movie. I respect Phil Lord and Christopher Miller a lot. They produced and written the Spider-Verse movies, which in my opinion are the best Spider-Man movies to ever be made. They also directed the Lego Movie, arguably one of the best animated movies of the 21st century. So when I saw they were directing a movie for the first time in over a decade, one that also happened to be an IMAX film, I just had to check it out. Going into this, I'd say my expectations were set at a normal level. Having seen the trailers, I could somewhat tell the tone of this movie and could gather that it was going for some Marvel-esque humor, which isn't really my thing. So my expectations for how much I would enjoy this film were slightly lower than the early consensus, that being that it was seemingly a masterpiece. I would say that my expectations for this movie were still a bit higher than how much I ended up enjoying it, but it was still a good time. Before I start, I want to say that this is a spoiler review, so if you haven't seen the movie, I recommend going to see it first. Although if I'm being totally honest, even if the movie is spoiled for you, I think you would still enjoy it. Part 1. The story. So I understand that this movie is an adaptation of a book by the same name, written by Andy Weir, who also wrote The Martian, which was also adapted into a movie of the same name. I have not read Project Hail Mary, but from what I've seen online, this movie seems to be a pretty faithful adaptation. That being said, I have some issues with this movie's plot. There are a lot of plot conveniences in this movie. For example, the character Rocky the alien and the main character Grace, played by Ryan Gosling, learn to communicate with each other very quickly in the film. Grace has a laptop in which she is able to record sounds coming from Rocky and assign them an English word, and then the laptop is able to instantly translate Rocky's language into English. This makes some sense, but in the movie there is literally no delay from Rocky speaking to it being translated to English. And also, it's never explained how Rocky is able to understand Grace without a laptop to translate Grace. I guess Rocky is just super smart and able to grasp English quickly. Another thing, the movie doesn't really tell us how much time has passed between Rocky and Grace meeting and them being able to communicate almost fluently. My best guess based on what is shown in the movie is at most a few weeks and at least a week. Being very generous and saying that the timeline is a few weeks, that still seems very fast for almost fluent conversation between a human and an alien whose language is nothing like any human-based language. My second gripe is that the trip on which Ryan Gosling is on is marked as a one-way trip. The fuel for this trip is the astrophage, the alien microorganism that is dimming the Earth's sun and which Grace is sent to find a way to stop. Humans learn how to breed the astrophage, allowing them to create enough for this trip to Tau Ceti, a star that isn't being dimmed, hence why Grace is sent there to study it. But they never explain why it's a one-way trip, and why they can't just breed enough to make it a two-way trip. In the book, it's just explained that they don't have enough time to breed it, but I don't think that's ever explicitly said in the movie. My third gripe is the convenience of them being able to breed the predator of the astrophage, another microorganism, once they gather some. Maybe in the book they go into more detail on how they breed the Tau amoeba, as they call it, but in the movie it's just kind of brushed over. Lastly, the plot twist of Grace being put on the space trip unwillingly isn't really that surprising, at least it wasn't to me. Grace, at least at the start of the movie, comes off as somewhat stubborn, and his character really never felt like the kind to volunteer for any type of space mission. Overall, other than these complaints, I have no real issues with the story of Project Hail Mary. I like the way they switch back and forth between the past and present. The movie can be a bit corny at times, but it's enjoyable for the most part. This movie is generally pretty funny and has a solid emotional core with Grace and Rocky's friendship. Ryan Gosling's performance is probably the best part of the movie. I'm not sure this movie would have worked as well with another actor. With that being said, this movie is pretty basic. I wasn't surprised by anything that happened, but luckily the characters make up for the story lacking. Part 2. The cinematography. I thought the cinematography of this movie was pretty good. I saw this film in IMAX 70mm, so I got to experience the full 1.43:1 aspect ratio for the space scenes. So the intended experience, all things considered. The cinematographer for this film was Greg Fraser, best known for being the cinematographer for the Dune movies and The Batman. This film was well shot, and there were a couple of space scenes that were quite breathtaking in IMAX 70mm. Greg Fraser had custom-made anamorphic lenses for this movie, which converted the Arri Alexa 65 sensor size to 1.43:1, the IMAX aspect ratio. And that in its own right is cool. Honestly, the more I hear about this movie's cinematography, the more I'm impressed. The astrophage scene was also done practically, and for that he removed the infrared filter from the Arri Alexa 65 and also put a filter which was glass then water then glass for a more dreamy look. Overall, I wouldn't say this movie's cinematography is on the same level as something like The Batman or the Dune movies, but it's still solid. Part 3. The score. I can understand people being wowed by this film's cinematography and loving this movie's characters and plot, but what I don't understand is the love for this movie's score. I thought that Project Hail Mary's score was incredibly generic sounding and overbearing. There were a lot of scenes to me that were partially ruined because of the music. I wish there were more scenes in the film that didn't have the score in them. I love Daniel Pemberton's scores for the Spider-Verse movies, but unfortunately I cannot say the same thing for his Project Hail Mary score. Part 4. Verdict. Overall, Project Hail Mary is a perfectly good crowd-pleasing movie. I'd even say it's slightly above average for a movie of its tone. But I don't think it's a 5-star, and I wouldn't even give this movie a 4-star. It's a good Hollywood movie, but nothing groundbreaking is being done in this movie. If you think it's a 5-star film, that's fine, but for me, I give this film a 3.5 star, 7 out of 10. Part 5. People Be Crazy. So I didn't initially plan to include this part, but after seeing some of people's reactions to this movie online, I thought I'd comment on it. I've seen some people say that if you don't like this movie, then you're a buzzkill, or have no joy. And I've also seen people disparage people who like this movie, saying that this movie is for the 3 movies a year crowd, or that it's a coworker movie. Personally, I liked Project Hail Mary. Do I think the reception it's getting is a little overblown? Yes. But I also don't think it's a bad movie. That being said, I think the people on both sides need to chill out. It's okay if you didn't like Project Hail Mary. It's okay if you loved it. And it's fine if you like me and you thought it was good but not great. The great thing about art is that everyone has their subjective experience with it. And I don't really like it when people try to diminish others' experience with a piece of art. So go see this movie. Odds are you'll love it, as most people do. Me personally, not totally my type of movie. Anyway, that's all. Bye.